Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Organizing Life's Daily Demands. My name is Peter Gordon, and I'm the president of New York Financial Organizers. We're daily money managers, and we help people pay their bills, process insurance claims, and do all the non-investment side of personal finance. And essentially, it's organizing their non-investment daily demands. And the purpose of this podcast is to interview people who can help in other aspects of our viewers' lives. And I'm really, really excited today. I have a wonderful guest, Michael Freed, who's going to talk about the services he offers. Hi, Michael. How are you today?
I am great, Peter. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show.
Well, my pleasure. And I had the honor of being on 5 Minutes with Freed. So you're an old hat with this, which is wonderful. That was great. And we have a little more than 5 minutes, so we run usually 15, 20 minutes. I'm excited. It's an interesting field you're in that is unfortunately very necessary. I want you to start by telling us a little bit about it.
So, Peter, I am a litigation partner in the matrimonial and family law firm of Berkman, Botker, Newman, and Shine. And we're one of the largest matrimonial firms in New York State. We have 3 offices. Today, I'm in the New York City office on 43rd between 5th and Madison. We also have offices in Westchester and on Long Island. And what we do is we help people in transition that are going through a divorce. We also handle family law issues as well as orders of protection and prenuptial agreements. And one of the things that stands out with our firm as compared to other matrimonial firms is we have 3 ways in which we can resolve disputes. So I have partners that handle mediation. They can act as mediators or collaborative lawyers. They can be working collaboratively with the other attorney. And then as well, the most traditional way and what I specialize in is the litigation aspect, trials and depositions, so on and so forth.
And what are the steps necessary if someone is contemplating a divorce?
So Peter, what I like to think about it in terms of what they call the big 4. Number 1, I say you have to organize your income. Number 1 is your income. What do you earn? What's your gross income? What's your net income after taxes? The second aspect of the big 4 is expenses, figuring out what your budget is going to be after a divorce. So we work on figuring out what your expenses are. And this is actually where you can help us out as matrimonial attorneys, Peter, is trying to help assist us with certain clients. Sometimes they are not organized in terms of their finances and they don't know where to go with things. And in order to really help them figure out in terms of support, either receiving support or paying support, you need to know what your expenses are. So you need to figure out the budget. So that's the second part of the big 4. The third part is figuring out assets. What are your assets? What your checking accounts, your savings accounts, your brokerage accounts, retirement accounts. All of this information is relevant when we determine whether assets are marital property or separate property. And then the final issue is liabilities. So just the way we distribute assets, we have to distribute debt. And so it's important to figure out, do you have any credit card debt? What about loans? What about student loans? So all of these 4 aspects are crucial when you're deciding whether or not to get divorced and if you actually start that process. To me, as a matrimonial attorney, organization is everything.
That's very interesting. Yeah. And what percentage of people come to you that are organized?
I wish it was more. I usually comes into 2 different categories. The first is that the person comes to me for an initial consultation, knowing absolutely nothing, doesn't bring a single document to the initial consultation. And then I have those that bring shopping bags of not only statements, but receipts for the past 10 years
Yeah.
and throws it on my desk and say, have fun with this.
Like you're a CPA.
Right, right. So we get a little bit of that. And that's why it's so important. And I'm so glad that I'm able to speak today to you about having people come into an initial consultation with some, organization. Because the more organized somebody can be, the easier it is for me to just do my job and educate on the law.
Well, what what's the emotional impact though on people and being having them considering the divorce and then trying to be organized at the same time?
Well, that's the most difficult aspect of it because people are coming to me at their the most emotional time, and they can't think straight. And I always tell people on an initial consultation, it's okay to get help. It's okay to go to a therapist because the clearer that you are in terms of your mindset, the more you can help me. I can only do so much as a lawyer, but I'm really trying to get in and understand your life in every aspect, dealing with finances, also dealing with children.
Mm.
It's not only dollars and cents here, but we're dealing with children's lives. And custody is the most emotional aspect of everything I do here. So it's difficult, but it's always important for a client to have a support system, somebody that they can talk to in terms of a therapist, somebody like you, Peter, that can help with the day-to-day daily managing of money. So important.
Yeah, no, that is critical. And how do people find you?
Well, they can find us in terms of getting, on our website.
Well, no, that's not really what I mean. That's more like the end of the interview question.
Right.
Who refers you? Who refers
Referrals.
you business? And what's your how do people get referred to you?
Sure.
What are the
Well,
sources?
most of it is word of mouth
Mm,
from prior clients. I get a lot of referrals from prior clients that actually have had it where if I represented the wife, sometimes I would get referrals from the husband, which is to me, I feel like I'm doing my job because at least they know, look, he was the adversary in the case, but he did the right thing.
that
So,
says a lot, Michael.
well, yeah, thank you. And between that and then in terms of professionals, accountants are always a great source of business. Financial advisors. What's also, a lot of people ask me this question, and I usually say it's the people you wouldn't expect:
Yeah,
hairdressers, bartenders, great sources of referrals. Why? Because they have their ear to the ground. They have a captive audience. When you're getting a haircut, what do you talk about? Everything that's going on in your life. So I'm always, and I don't have much more, hair anymore. But when I did, I was going to get a haircut every month or so. I would always bring extra cards, business cards.
yeah.
But yeah, great source of business are those, you know, hair cutters, bartenders, people like that.
I'm imagining you doing a workshop for bartenders or a workshop for.
It's a great idea, Peter. It's
It's
great.
interesting. It's something to think about. Um, uh, that's the old marketer in me. Um, so, so a prospective client does come to you, and you covered those 4 points. Now, but what should they bring to that initial consultation?
Well, I think the most important thing is coming in with a list of questions. I can't tell you how many times I've had initial consultations with clients and they're like, I know I wanted to ask something, but I forgot. And again, it goes to all the stress.
Yeah,
So I always say, even when people are making the appointments, bring a list of questions. There is no dumb question when it comes to this. Also, it's important just in terms of documents, um, at least for the initial consultation, the last year of tax returns, federal and state. Also, in terms of your assets, any like the last monthly statement for checking, for savings, for brokerage, for retirement accounts, any information that you have on the house, just in terms of how much it was purchased for, how much was put down, the current balance on the mortgage. All of these documents are important because what I try to do in my mind is go through with somebody in terms of assets. What are the assets? Because I'm with equitable distribution, which is the law in New York State when it comes to division of assets. I'm looking at identifying the assets. Where are they? Classifying the assets, whether it's marital property or separate property. And why that's important is because marital property is anything that you acquire from the date that you get married up until the start of a divorce proceeding. And all of that marital property is subject to equitable distribution. But separate property is anything you receive prior to the marriage or by gift or inheritance or something that you acquire after the divorce starts. And that is exempt from equitable distribution. So I always ask in an initial consultation, when did you acquire this? And then I'll say, well, okay, you had an asset that was before the marriage, but then did you put money in during the marriage? Did you commingle that money? So people like you as a money manager can help organize the client to find out where these assets were and was there money that was commingled, because we're always looking to trace assets. And it's not easy for a client that's not educated in finance to understand how to trace assets from when they acquired it during the marriage up until the start of a divorce. So I'm looking at identifying, classifying, and finally, I'm going to discuss distributing the asset. What percentage of the asset goes to each party?
So I know from my experience dealing with couples, usually one person is more involved than the other, and one person has an idea of where everything is. And so if that's not the person who comes to you, how do you handle that?
So that happens so many times,
Oh,
and I tell them it's okay, and you do the best you can because the one of the most important documents that anybody is going to be preparing in a divorce, it's what's called a statement of net worth. And the statement of net worth includes the big four. We're going to have a list of expenses from the monthly mortgage down to dog food, and it's going to be categorized on a monthly basis to come up with your budget. And there's also going to be a list for your income, from gross income, expend, and then your deductions to your net. And then there's a section for assets, everything about each asset, when it was acquired, what was the source of funds to acquire it, what's the balance, and the same for liabilities. So it's a sworn document that every litigant has to prepare, whether you're going to see the light of a courtroom or if you're not. And that statement of net worth, that sworn statement of net worth, has to be done meticulously. It's got to be, in my estimation, perfect, because it's the most scrutinized document that you're going to be preparing in a divorce. So that is the document that, whether I'm going to be in a courtroom or not, I need to see it, exchange it, and review it in order to determine whether or not this is a whatever settlement is obtained is fair and reasonable.
got it, got it. Um, and so what are the documents that get exchanged? So what you're moving forward, you have a divorce proceeding. What is it that financial documents are exchanged during that period?
So if the case is a contested case, there's actually what's called a notice with discovery and inspection that is sent out and served on the other side. And it's a laundry list of items that are requested. And the items are requested from the start of the marriage up until the current time unless somebody also is making a claim for separate property. So we would need to see what the value or the statements that show value, let's say a day before the marriage, to see what's
Mm,
there. So we ask for tax returns. You know, sometimes there could be a 20 to 30-year marriage, so I'm not going to
mm,
ask for 30 years of returns, but I would look for, let's say, the last 3 years or 3 to 5 years of tax returns, and that's federal, state, individual. And if there's a business, I would want to look at the corporate returns as well. I'm going to look at bank statements, but not just the checking account and savings account statements, but I'm also going to ask for canceled checks, front and back. I want to see it when it's negotiated. I'm going to look for brokerage statements. I want to see retirement account statements as well. And like we said earlier, anything in terms of the house, closing statements, um, in terms of liabilities, credit card statements, all of these, everything. When you go through a divorce, you are an open book, and
mm.
there's nothing that you can hide when it comes to a divorce.
Yeah. Um, it's very interesting. What what trends have you seen as of late? I'm sure COVID had an influence on your business, like it has on everyone's. But is there anything that you've seen more or less of lately?
Well, since COVID, we've been seeing a lot of people moving to different locations, and again, this is where you come in again to help out with people in transition. But it's really happened a lot since 2020, where I've had cases where I've represented, let's say, a father, and the mother decides, you know what, it's really dangerous here in New York City. At one time, New York City was the epicenter of COVID, so they
Yeah.
would move to the suburbs. Okay, fine, but it was only supposed to be a temporary move, and then 6 to 8 to 10 months later, they're not moving. And this is, let's say, a New York City case, and they're in Long Island or Connecticut, and we're now trying to get them back to New York City. And I can't tell you how many times I would go into court to try to have the children return, because the parent that moved is saying, I don't think it's safe. And the courts are saying, look, we're not going to play God here. If there's an agreement that your children are supposed to see both parents, whether it's in New York City or in the suburbs, that's going to happen. And people have to use common sense. But a lot of that went out the window during COVID.
Yeah, yeah, and we focused a lot on the financial side of your work, but there is that issue with custody. In wrapping up, you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, you mentioned that now.
Sure. Well, with custody, there's really the court. When people ask you what does a court look at in terms of determining custody, and the standard is what's in the best interest of the child, but that's a very broad standard, and there's a lot of different factors, and they're going to look at the fitness of both parents, both physically, emotionally. You put everything at issue when you're looking at it. So sometimes people come to me and they have alcohol issues, and they say, is this going to be an issue going down the road for me? And I say, it is, but it's only one factor.
Mm,
uh, so I've had situations where people were recovering alcoholics, and they haven't had a drink in 5 or 6 years, and I tell them that's great. It's certainly something that the other side can delve into, but if you're managing it, and that could be with any issues. I have had people with bipolar disorder come into me, and as long as you're on your medication, it's okay. So I always tell people too, can I date while I'm going through this divorce? And I tell them you can, but you need to be discreet about it and not flaunt the new boyfriend or girlfriend in front of the children, because the children are the innocent ones here. They didn't sign up for this. The fact that their parents are splitting up. So
yeah,
I always tell them to be conscious of it. I understand they have a life, but the children are the most important aspect of the family, and that their needs have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah. I mean, I know you see a lot of interesting things out there, and
I
and
do.
and I do know that you are an utmost professional, and it comes across as we talk and you tell us about the work you do. So thank you so much. What is the best way for somebody to reach you? Although it will be in the notes.
Well, the best way to reach me is you can contact my office. Telephone number is 212-68. It's so funny because we do so much through the internet that
Yeah.
we forget. 212-867-9123 is the phone number. The My email address also is a great way to get in touch with me. It's mfreed@berkbot.com is another way to reach me. And if anybody has any questions, you can contact us. And certainly, if it comes through you, Peter, I would certainly offer a free consultation, a 1 hour consultation.
Wow. Very nice.
Sure.
Very nice to know. Yeah. And yeah, no, and if you do reach out to Michael, I know he'll get back to you very quickly, and you'll be really happy with the information you receive. Okay, so Mike, thank you. Thanks again. And thank you to all the listeners. And I look forward to seeing you all at our next podcast. Take care
Thank
now.
you very much.